Welcome to Character Study. This is Season 2, the Jacob Cycle. I'm John Fortt, here with Dave Tieche, and we are delving into Scripture and looking at it through the lens of the people to see what they show us about our relationship with God, our relationships with each other. And today, we get into the man himself, the one who the cycle is named for, Jacob. We started off with his mama, Rebekah, to really look at how this whole wrestling match got started. But now we're looking at Jacob, and Dave, he really, unlike our relationship, Dave, he really doesn't get along with his twin brother Esau.
No, he really doesn't. And this is probably going to be part one. We're going to have to do a part two. This is kind of part one, the early years, right?
Yeah.
This is episodes 1, 2, and 3. Yeah. What'd you say?
The Wonder Years, if you will. Fred Savage.
What would you do? I don't know if people understand that reference, John. Do people understand who Kevin Arnold is? Winnie Cooper.
It's all streaming now.
Maybe. I don't know if I made that reference to the Wonder Years. I don't think my son would get it. I don't think he'd understand what's going on. But yeah, we're going to do the part one, and there is significant conflict here between brothers. We saw that, we've seen this before. We've seen sibling conflict before, but we're going to look at this. We're going to stare at this dysfunction straight on. So it's going to be super fun. So
now, Jacob is a controversial character, as you and I established when we're talking about Rebekah, because he's not exactly, shall we say, honest.
He's the opposite. I mean, Jacob means like liar, trickster, right?
Yeah.
So he's a trickster, and tricksters have, tricking is a form of manipulation and control. It's a form of making your way in the world so that you have what you want and need because you're afraid that nobody else is gonna, help you out. So he kind of lives a little bit like a street urchin, trying like Aladdin, just kind of getting what he needs and got to steal to eat, got to eat to steal. Otherwise we get along. It's like, that's kind of what he is. And I think we're supposed to stare at this and see, you don't have to live this way. You're not a street urchin without parents. You've got a heavenly Father that's actually trying to reshape and teach you that you're not an orphan in this world. So I think that might be kind of what we're trying to stare at here.
To your point, the first sin in the Bible was as a response or result of a trick. The serpent tricked Eve and Adam. And so in that sense, trickery, maybe not good. Then at the same time, probably the most impressive interaction that we've seen with God in Scripture up to this point is when Abraham and God are going back and forth over what happens with Sodom and Gomorrah. And while it's impossible to trick God, of course, Abraham is doing this sort of, let me see how much I can get here back and forth, that if not street urchin-like, is certainly kind of street haggler-like. And we know Abraham himself to be kind of a tricky character. So there's this line between being clever and the relational aspect of getting as much as you can within the will of God and tricking to the point where you push or encourage someone outside of the will of God. And it seems like at this point, relatively early on, still in Genesis, we have these God-seeking characters who are straddling that line.
Yeah. Well, I mean, even with Abraham, he's in a relationship with God, talking to God face to face. A lot of times what you're going to see with Jacob is there's not that. So we're going to try to see the places where how he's the same as Abraham. What's that line from Jesus? Be as wise as serpents and innocent as doves. So
Jesus has the best lines.
That's a great line. But like,
they're in red. That's how good they are. They're just
they're all serpents are tricky, they and it's a weird thing for Jesus to use a metaphor with a serpent, knowing what we know about Genesis, that's strange imagery. But like what are we looking at here? So that's what we're going to do. Also, on a personal level, I don't like Jacob. I think about the people I've worked with or known in my life who have been kind of really great manipulators. Political machinations, a little Machiavellian, and they're straddling and going, and they are my least favorite people. They're like Randall from Monsters Inc. They're constantly, finagling and moving up, and and they're the worst. And so I have like a core reaction against that kind of manipulation and self-servingness. So I'm, if I have my heart on my sleeve, Jacob's got a card up his sleeve, and I'm not down with that. That's not the way I live. And so I get angry reading some of these stories. So I'm not the biggest fan of Jacob, if I'm honest.
I see that. I, on the other hand, have been known to haggle a bit, to have some tendencies in line with Jacob's. And I got to point out, weren't you the one when we did an episode who stood up for Judas? So how you gonna have sympathy for Judas but be like, I can't stand Jacob because he's tricky? I mean, that's a
fair.
tough one.
That's fair. Yeah. So we'll get into that. I'm just saying that this is where I come from, and so,
well, make your case.
So I thought we'd do a format a little different. I'm going to choose 2 verses in the first part of Jacob's story that I think illustrate something or illuminate something about Jacob, about his character, about who he is, about where we are in this story. And then you're going to share two verses. I think yours are actually later. So I'll go first. I'll share my 2, and then we'll just have a conversation about them. I'd love to hear what you think about the verses that I've chosen and what I think they illuminate. So
I like
here we are. We're early on in the story. We're in Genesis. Let's go. Well, we talked last week about Rebekah, so there was a lot there in 26 and 27. So I'm going to move on to the tricking on 27. Right. So here's the story. You've got Isaac, who's old. His eyesight is going. His senses are going, and he knows his time is coming. So he's like, I'm going to give my blessing to my oldest son. Rebekah hears it, and remember, she's got her favorite. Her favorite is not Esau, the man of the fields, the man of the wild game. It's her other boy, and so she develops this kind of plan, this machination. She says, hey, your dad's gonna give his blessing, bring this food to him, right? Pretend like you're Esau and just take it. He's like, well, what about my arms? He's super hairy and I'm not. And so they put like goat skin on his arms. And at that point, if you've got that much hair, I think it's fur, you're part Wookiee at that point.
Yeah,
that's
probably
true.
True.
So
just to interject here though.
Sure.
The way you set that up, it was like Rebekah was doing this just because Jacob is her favorite. But I would like to point out that she did pray when the 2 boys were in the womb. Why are they fighting? God told her, not only do they not get along, but the older is going to serve the younger, which is an extra bit of information. I don't know why God really had to give prenatally, but he did. And so, in a way, since Isaac's blessing is actually going to set up the opposite of what
God has said. She's just going to help God. She's going to help God along. Yeah.
Maybe not only she's taking it upon herself to help God along, maybe God gave her that bit of information early on for such a time as this, as Esther might say, or Mordecai.
A fascinating point. Is Rebekah just trying to be faithful to what God said, or is she? When God says something's going to happen, what role do we have in helping to make it happen? Do we have to make it happen in the world, or do we just trust that God is going to move in history and make things happen? That's a great question. Regardless, let me come to my verse that I've chosen. It's in 27:20. So basically, he gets the tasty food from his mom, his mom has cooked it. He went to his father, said, my father, yes, my son, who is it? And he's like, I'm Esau. I've done as you told me. Sit up and eat some of my game so that you may give me your blessing. And then Isaac asked the son, how did you find it so quickly, my son? And then Jacob says, "The Lord your God gave me success." And I just think this is so funny. It's like God had nothing to do with this, buddy. you know? But I also thought about it as like this is kind of deception inception. Like this is Jacob deceiving his dad, but really it's Isaac's wife and son deceiving him together. And I just that's a level of deception that Rebekah is doing to Isaac that's pretty insidious. I mean, you can lie to your spouse, but only about like if you're planning a surprise birthday party. You know what I mean? You're not
Yeah.
this level of deception's not okay.
Bringing God into it is going a bit far. And
Yeah.
apologies for Opal, my cat, who very much
Oh
wants to be
yeah.
a part of this podcast.
Did he
She
just
might
jump
make an
just jump in?
yeah, she just
Oh,
jumped
it's
in, and
Opal is a
yeah,
she?
Opal is a she. She
I
walked
didn't know
through.
that.
Yeah.
Wow.
But she might sing a few lines every now and then. But yeah, I mean, the Lord your God gave me success. That does seem to cross a line, right? Bringing God into it, being like, hey, that's how that's downright wicked. So I got to give you that.
So, but see, here's what it did. It reminded me that he comes from a family of deceivers. So, just the previous chapter in Genesis chapter 26, Isaac, who we skipped over because he's kind of let's be honest, he's a boring character. Not a lot of stuff happens to Isaac. He doesn't do a lot of stuff. But he has this interesting encounter with this king named Abimelech. And he tells the king, he's worried that the king is going to take Rebekah as his wife, because when you enter into a king's territory, they kind of have that right. So he lies and says, she's my sister. And it says in the text, because he was afraid to say she's my wife, he thought the men of this place might kill me on account of Rebekah because she is so beautiful. And we're supposed to read this and go, that's exactly what Abraham did with Sarah when he was in Egypt with the Pharaoh. And the exact same thing happens. We see the exact same pattern. It's almost comical. And so his mom's a deceiver, his dad's a deceiver, his grandfather's a deceiver. This is the pattern of deception in his family. So
let me for the defense
sure.
point this out though. If there's redemption here or an argument to be had, both Abraham and Isaac did what they had to do, they thought, to protect what was most valuable.
Sure.
Right? Their lives and their wives' lives, they knew what was valuable and they acted accordingly. Part of the issue here with Jacob and Esau is that Esau does not correctly value his birthright or the family and lineage structure that God has ordained. So these are guys who are going into a strange land because they have to and trying to keep their family together. Esau, what we've seen thus far is he's not taking a wife where he's supposed to, and he's not listening to his parents. So in a way, it's a violation of that family thing.
Yeah. Esau is not a great character. He does intermarry with people who have foreign gods against his parents' direct commands and wishes. He despises his birthright. We didn't really talk about that much, but he basically trades it. He's a man of appetite and impetuousness. He's not super thoughtful. All those things are true. But what this verse did is it actually gave me sympathy for Jacob. Let me explain. His dad and mom are playing favorites with the kids. And I just thought how destructive that is. Like, we each of us have two children. Imagine if you actually knew for a fact, my dad prefers the other sibling and my mom prefers, or opposite. If I was like, hey, Justice, you're my favorite, Jail's my second favorite, she's a distant second. And then Nicole was like, Jail, you're my first favorite, Justice, you are a distant second. If my kids felt that, the rift in our family would be pretty exceptional. You've got two boys. It would be even worse, if you were like, hey, Nathan, you're my favorite. Benjamin, you are not my favorite. I mean, that's really destructive. That's super duper messed up. And we've seen how favoritism can actually destroy family systems. I mean, it's really, really destructive. I mean, even the idea of favoritism with Cain and Abel, with God, it provokes a jealousy that leads to murderous rage. And so it's like, it gave me some sympathy for Jacob. It's like, look, this wasn't his idea. Like his mom told him to do this. It's not excusable, but he's trying to survive. He's trying to just, I mean, what are you supposed to do? And so he comes from a long line of family dysfunction. So it gave me a little bit of sympathy for Jacob. I don't think this is entirely his fault. He's caught in the middle of this dysfunctional family. He's trying to make his mom happy. His dad. Yeah. So I don't know. I have a little bit more sympathy for him. He is a deceiver, but I think the family systems and the dysfunctions that we stare at here may give a little bit more full picture.
And the way the story is set up, Isaac is blind, and Rebekah has superpowers, apparently, of perception. So, not only is Isaac literally blind in the sense that he can't see here as he's about to give the blessing, but we know, because of the great exposition of the Bible, that there's some key information that Rebekah has that God gave her that Isaac doesn't seem to be paying attention to. So not only is he literally blind, he appears to be kind of spiritually blind. At the same time, not only does Rebekah know this, but she's able to make this plan. And later in the story, as we talked about in the previous episode, she has like spies and super hearing and all of these skills that allow her to put Jacob in position to be and do, at least what from her perspective, what God said he's supposed to be and do.
Yeah. All good points. Yeah. And I like your point about Esau despising his birthright, and that's a real problem. And I think we'll come to that when we talk about Esau. He's a really problematic character. I
started thinking of Roadrunner and Wile E. Coyote. Like, do we hate Roadrunner for tricking the coyote? We don't.
Coyote's just stupid.
Well, his values are misplaced, right? He shouldn't be trying to. And in a similar sort of way, Esau is sort of the coyote in this cartoon tale, and Jacob is a roadrunner.
Meet.
Right? Like hairy, coyote, smooth, roadrunner. I mean, it kind of works.
Okay, so that's my first thing, and that kind of softened me on Jacob a little bit, to your point. And then, so my second verse that I wanted to share is also in Genesis 27. It's verse 33. So this is after the blessing is given. So Isaac gives the blessing to Jacob, and then it's almost like a sitcom. Immediately after, Esau comes into the tent, right? So it's like almost funny the way the story is told.
You can hear the laugh track.
Yeah. And so after Isaac finished blessing him, Jacob had scarcely left his father's presence when his brother Esau came in from hunting. He prepared some tasty food, and then he said, "Hey, eat some of my game." And his father said, "Wait, who are you?" He's like, "I'm your son. I'm your firstborn son, Esau." And then Isaac trembled violently and said, "Who was it then that hunted game and brought it to me?"
He looks at the camera.
What?
He looks toward the camera, even though he can't see.
I ate it just before you came in, and I blessed him, and indeed he will be blessed. And this is the verse. When Esau heard his father's words, he burst out with a loud and bitter cry and said to his father, bless me too, my father." But he said, "Your brother came deceitfully and took your blessing." So the first question I had was like, okay, so like, why can't he just like give him another blessing? Like, I don't quite understand this kind of custom. Why can't there be two blessings? This is a custom that's a little alien, I think, to both of us. We don't live in a time period where this was big, but in the ancient world, and you see this in some traditional cultures, the firstborn was like a big deal. It's a really, really big deal. And they got a double portion, which is whatever you want to call it. That's always given to the firstborn, never to the secondborn. And that was just the societal structure. This was a man-made structure. There's nothing necessarily biblical, certainly not anything God commands about this. And sometimes it reminded me that sometimes I think that we can get stuck in these kind of man-made structures, these cultural ideas. They're so stuck that we kind of can't get out of them. We can't even see the truth underneath the thing. That's just, well, this is the way it's always been done. I think we all do this in some ways. I think we all get stuck in this kind of stuff. And this kind of firstborn sibling rivalry, double blessing, this is going to result in significant conflict in the rest of the biblical narrative. Like
It seems,
go ahead.
I was just gonna say, it seems kind of like code. Like you're asking why only one blessing? It's like the logic of it. If you look at the blessing of Jacob, it's like it's hierarchical.
Yeah.
It says you're going to rule over him. Here's all the stuff you're going to get. And so the logic of the blessing locks out the possibility for somebody else to also have just as much or do just as well. And so it's interesting to me that, I mean, just this is a long time ago, ancient times, and we live in such a digital world now where so much of what we do and see and experience is the result of how things are coded. In a way, this is code. Yeah. This is, God has allowed the father in this case to be a proxy who's sort of setting a path of possibilities for his progeny, for his offspring. And now Jacob has been given this primary position in the code of the resources that that God has allowed the family to have.
Yeah. And I think what God's trying to do is rewrite some code, right? He's gonna say it's not always the firstborn. It's the only one that's important. Not to be weird about this, but I live in an area with a lot of different ethnicities, and sometimes from traditional families, firstborn male sons get a lot more attention than secondborn children, especially secondborn daughters. And there's this moment in the New Testament where Paul says, you are all like firstborn sons. And Paul does that on purpose. He's saying, he's using the cultural code to say, this is how God sees you. So when you read that, you're like, well, God sees you as a son or a daughter, right? But that's not what Paul's saying. He's saying, if you're a third-born daughter, God sees you like a firstborn son, how you see that in your culture. And I had a friend, a dear friend, who was from a traditional family, and that's how her brothers were treated one way, and she as a daughter was treated dramatically different. And she was not valued as a female, and she certainly wasn't valued as the firstborn son. So when she read Paul reading that's how God sees her, that really mattered to her. And I think that's what God's trying to do. He's trying to rewrite some code here. He's going to subvert this man-made structure and kind of show something different, the inversion of the order,
That makes a lot of sense. Esau, as you mentioned, does get a blessing.
He does.
It's kind of a leftovers blessing, kind of like a sloppy seconds blessing. Yeah. It's like, well, you won't do that bad. It's going to be rough for you, but you'll make it work. And so it's kind of the bronze medal,
yeah.
It's still a medal, like but it's not the gold.
And you made a point when we were talking earlier, which I thought was great. You're like, look, if you're going to treat God's birthright, if you're going to treat God like this, there's some consequences to this, there's a lot to say about that. If you're going to, God is infinite, but his promises are specific. And I think that there's something to be said about, Esau is a cautionary tale, I think, for all of us too. So, again, I'm not trying to take a pro Jacob stance, but this anyway. So it just kind of that point in that story reminded me about the inversion, and I think about even Jesus as a firstborn among all, right? He's God's only begotten son. And what does he do? He comes down and he doesn't consider equality with God something to be grasped, but rather empties himself, becomes a servant and a slave, obedient even unto death, as that beautiful poem in Ephesians 2 tells us. So there's an inversion with Jesus, the firstborn son, who lowers himself intentionally in order to, so there's all sorts of beautiful inversions that God's about to do, but we're nowhere near Jesus yet. We're still very early in the story. So,
and as we mentioned in an earlier episode, there's a parallel here in Esau to Samson.
Yeah.
He's this man's man. He's dealing with the animals out there. He's hunting and killing them and kind of asserting his dominance in a
Manly
physical way.
dominance. Yes.
Yeah. But God seems to be saying that's not enough. Similar to how Samson asserted dominance over the natural world, he sought to rewrite what his parents wanted for him, both in terms of who he was supposed to build a family with
Yeah.
and the rules that he was supposed to maintain in order to
Be
not
faithful.
only maintain his strength, but fulfill the role that God had given him
Yeah.
as a leader and protector of Israel. And in a sense, that was Samson's birthright. And we see Esau sort of playing fast and loose with his birthright in the earlier part of this story, which
Yeah.
seems to not absolve Rebekah and Jacob of their culpability in the trickiness and the trickeration, but it at least foreshadows how Esau took his eye off that very valuable ball and Jacob took it.
Yep. There it is. Oh, those are my two.
All right.
Do you have
So
two?
I do indeed.
All right. Let's get into it.
So the backstory here in Genesis 27, verse 41, it says Esau held a grudge against Jacob because of the blessing his father had given him. He said to himself, "The days of mourning for my father are near. Then I'll kill my brother Jacob."
Oh boy,
Okay.
that's intense.
Just drop an anvil on his head to call back to the Wile E. Coyote situation.
Yeah.
And here, Rebekah, once again, senses heightened, not blind like Isaac, certainly not deaf. She's got somebody always out there listening who comes back and tells her, "Hey, Rebekah, this is serious out here. He's not just mad, he's murderously mad.
Yeah.
He wants to
that's good.
kill your favorite." And Rebekah tells Jacob to run.
Mhm.
He does.
Run, Forrest.
Run, Forrest.
Run.
Okay,
And
Rebekah.
I'll listen to my mama.
There you go. And in Genesis 28, on the run,
Yep.
starting in verse 10, Jacob left Beersheba and set out for Haran because he's going to his uncle Laban. He's going to find himself a wife there. That's the cover for his permission to leave. When he
Yep.
reached a certain place, he stopped for the night because the sun had set. He took a stone. I'm going to start paraphrasing here. He had a dream in which he saw a stairway resting on the earth with its top reaching to heaven, and the angels of God were ascending and descending on it. There above it stood the Lord, and he said, "I am the Lord, the God of your father Abraham and the God of Isaac. I will give you and your descendants the land on which you are lying. Your descendants will be like the dust of the earth, and you will spread out to the west and to the east, to the north and to the south. All the peoples of the earth will be blessed through you and your offspring. I am with you and will watch over you wherever you go and will bring you back to this land. I will not leave you until I have done what I have promised you." Clearly, I switched off the paraphrasing, but a couple of things there.
Wow.
The Great Commission is in a way suggested in there with the "I am with you to the end of the age," but
Ooh.
also it's kind of a ratification of not only what God told Rebekah before the boys were born about the older will serve the younger, but he's kind of saying that blessing you got, yes, you've got it. Like he's reiterating the idea that the blessing is going to come in the line through his father and his father's father through him. So while I get you, it didn't happen the right way. In a way, even as he's running, God seems to be ratifying the substance of what's playing out, if not the method.
Well, we're supposed to see this and be like, this is exactly what God did with Abraham. This is exactly Genesis 12. Many people think, many theologians call Genesis 12 Grand Central Station because so many biblical links come out of it. It is one of the most important verses in all of the Bible. And this is just in almost a word for word recapitulation of that exact promise. And it's staggering. I mean, your descendants will be like the dust of the earth. That's the exact same thing. All the peoples of the earth will be blessed through you and your offspring. And then this beautiful phrase, "I'm with you and I will watch over you wherever you go." I mean, is there a better promise that God could possibly make to any human being? This is unbelievable. This is a staggering. I don't know what your second verse you're going to choose is, John. You're not going to get better than this. This is, and he also has kind of like his eyes are open to see a spiritual reality, right? So he sees beyond the physical world, right? So that's utterly fascinating too.
The other part that we know here, if we think about it, and this always has confused me, Abraham got this promise that his descendants were going to be like the dust of the earth, like the sand on the stars in the sky.
Yep.
He has 2 kids, but only one of them gets to continue on this line of blessing.
The lineage.
That's the child of promise. It's like, okay, well, there's not a lot of compounding happening here. It's 1-to-1. Okay. All right.
Yeah.
So then you get Isaac. Here's a child of promise. Same blessing. You know, the world's going to be blessed through you. He has 2 kids, but only one is a child of promise. The blessing is going to come through the one. Again, no compounding, no sand, no stars, no dust. But now Jacob is getting this blessing, and we know 12 tribes of Israel are going to come out of Jacob. So we can, what happened to Ishmael? What happened to Esau? Somehow they just got factored out of this equation. And now the compounding is going to start through Israel, through Jacob. And here's the moment where it's promised, I guess, parallel to the passage that you brought my attention to quite a while ago, where Abraham's walking through the barbecue. You know, all of that. Here's Jacob's moment is a lot more picturesque. You don't see a lot of paintings of Abraham walking through split carcasses, but the stairway to heaven with the angels ascending and descending, that's a much prettier picture.
Is this where Zeppelin came up with the title? Is that where that is?
Must be.
Must be.
Know?
Yeah. What a moment. Yeah, I was saying this is interesting. There's these moments where God reveals something, like peels back a reality and shows humans something. Those are really important moments. The Bible actually has a word for them, and it's a strange word, the apocalypse, which basically means a vision from God, where God goes to an individual, peels back reality, shows them something that they're supposed to, it shows them something about ultimate reality, and God chooses a special representative, in this case, this guy, Jacob, this trickster, to show him something about God and God's ultimate purposes. And they're supposed to serve as vessels of divine wisdom and bring that new knowledge about God into the world. So now we know that the physical world is not all there is, that God can meet a trickster in the middle of a desert as he runs away. That's a big deal. In the ancient world, you had to go to a temple, maybe, or you built like a ziggurat. That's where Abraham was from. You built these pyramids, these step structures to go up to heaven to try to get the attention of the gods. Here, God is coming and going with his angels. This is a big deal. So,
and that's actually a perfect segue into my second verse.
Oh, okay.
We're talking about building ziggurats. Genesis chapter 28. Verse 19, kind of picking up right after we left. Early the next morning, Jacob took the stone he had placed under his head, interesting, and set it up as a pillar and poured oil on top of it. He called that place Bethel, though the city used to be called Luz. Then Jacob made a vow, saying, if God will be with me and will watch over me on this journey I am taking, and will give me food to eat and clothes to wear, so that I return safely to my father's household, then the Lord will be my God. And this stone that I have set up as a pillar will be God's house. And of all that you give me, I will give you a tenth. So now we have these layered references. You get Abraham and Melchizedek at the end with that give you a tenth.
Yeah. That's a good callback. Yep.
You get this stone under his head that's getting anointed, which to me, looking forward at David getting anointed to be king, there's the stone under his head, the stone that the builders rejected has become the chief cornerstone. Jesus, like all the stones, if the Lord will do, and this if the Lord will do to me doesn't sound like doubting or even bargaining so much as God has said in the dream what God will do. And Jacob seems to be echoing that and saying, since God's going to do this, since this is the promise, here is what I am going to do on my side. So in a way, going back to walking through the barbecue with Abraham, where there's this covenant established out of it, it's like God has spoken first what the promise is, and Jacob is saying, okay, here's how it is then. This is what I want. And interestingly, too, he wants to go home.
Yeah, his heart says, this does look, I don't know any other way to read it either, John. Anytime a human builds an altar, it's always a symbol of allegiance. And we can build altars to other gods, or in this case, Jacob building an altar is a sign of allegiance and trust. I love that idea. He's giving back to God, not buying anything, but as a response to God's covenant love, right? So this is A+ across the board. Is this a character shift? Is Jacob learning something? That's, I think, what we're supposed to take out of this. But
here's the part that I love about Jacob, and I'll this is just a quick interjection. Then please keep going.
No,
he's a wrestler, and from before he's born,
he's grabbing.
He's grappling. He's not getting it. He hasn't won, but he's reaching for it. And so partly the flaws, the trickery, the deception, it's him working from a point of incompleteness, from incorrectness, but he's reaching for what he's supposed to be reaching for.
Yeah.
Whether it's Esau's heel to get, or the birthright, or the blessing, or he's always reaching. And we're going to see him right now. He's taking this promise from God. He sees the angels ascending and descending at the beginning of this character transformation journey. Later, we're going to see him literally wrestling with an angel.
Yeah.
Saying, until you bless me, I'm not letting you go. Now, why does he need another blessing? I don't get that. After God told his mom, the older is going to serve you. After Isaac gave him the blessing that was traditionally given to Esau. After God has told him at Bethel, here's what I'm going to do for you. Why, when he's reversing this journey, coming back through this same kind of territory, to fulfill the prayer that he made here about going home, he's sacrificing his ability in the flesh to walk straight in order to wrestle this blessing, this extra blessing out of God. I don't fully understand that. Maybe we can kind of.
Yeah, we're not there in the story yet. We'll have to delve into that. Yeah.
Even having read it I still don't get, why does he need all these blessings? Esau gave up the one and Jacob got it, and he still wants more blessings. What are we supposed to take away from that? And what does that say about Jacob's character? If not apparently that he doesn't trust God, that he's always reaching for that next level.
Yeah. Well, we'll get to that in a second. I love, I do think there's that beautiful moment where he's like, I want to go back safely to my father's household. Jacob's trying to restore this family rift. And I think he kind of knows God's going to have to do some work because there's some royal mess up. So there's that. But also, this is going to sound strange. It reminds me of a moment when Moses has an encounter with God up on Sinai, right? And God shows him his glory, but he's like, look, I can't show you everything. It'll kill you. So I'll put you in the cleft of a rock and I'll pass by. And then Moses says, hey, if there's more to you, I want to know about it. I'd like to show me more. If there's more to you, I want to learn this. And Moses's position of like utter humility, but also like utter fascination with what it means to walk with God and who God is I think instructive for all of us. Like we never stop learning who God is. I think Jacob in a way is constantly saying, is there more? Is there more? Is there more here? He's not simple like Esau. He's not a simpleton. I think we're supposed to stare at him and say, like, maybe there's more. And so he's constantly trying to figure out, what does it mean to walk with God? So I think that there's something, again, I think there's something deeply sympathetic about Jacob. And I understand that. So I think that could be part of it too. So
I think you're right. And going back to your discomfort with Jacob and his character, I tried to mount a hearty defense, but then I'm also thinking forward, and we'll cover some of this into the latter years of Jacob's life.
Mm,
And not only does the wife who he favored die young,
yeah.
but the child who he favors,
Dies young, or he thinks he's dead.
he thinks he's dead.
Yeah.
So this favoritism, this grasping, in a way, eludes him later in life, and it almost becomes a deep tragedy
Yeah.
because these things that he's been grasping for when he worked the extra 7 years, when he did all these things, he gave his younger son the coat. It seems to go wrong
Yeah.
on
Yeah.
him.
Yeah.
And so, and this is teasing ahead to an episode we haven't even yet planned, but maybe the paces that Joseph puts his brothers through and trying to undo, and maybe I always viewed it as testing whether they had really changed. It's
Yeah.
not just testing whether they had changed. It's in a way evocative of that moment with Jesus and Peter, where he has Peter state his love and allegiance 3 times to undo the 3 times denial. Maybe
Yeah.
part of what Joseph is doing is undoing the trickery and the deception that has been laced through his family for generations, so that the 12 tribes can work together and be one family. Because after that story and after that point, at least for quite a while, until the time of David and Saul, we don't see Israel splitting apart in the way that we see these brothers and
Yeah.
constantly warring with each other.
Yeah, I think it's not just going to be later toward the end of his life. The next episode that we come up with, Jacob is going to learn a deeply formational lesson. The trickster is going to get tricked by the ultimate trickster. God's going to use that as a character formation tool for Jacob, just like we haven't fast forward here, but Joseph's going to learn some lessons in jail, So God's going to teach us the lessons that he needs to teach us to get that out of us, which is not of him. And he's going to patiently do it, and he's going to use life, and it's probably going to be really painful, because that's the way that we learn. Apparently, sometimes the only way that we learn. So that's coming up next is Laban. Laban is the trickiest of all. You think Jacob's a trickster. This guy's a trickster. He's the king of tricksters. So, and
zero remorse, remorse,
none. So he's like, what I'm trying to think of, like the most tricky tricksters in like Loki, or like, in Norse mythology or something. I don't know.
Yago or
yeah.
Not like the Roadrunner.
Yeah, or the Roadrunner. He's always painting trains on rocks and making you run into them. Thought it was a tunnel, man. I thought it was a tunnel.
Looking forward to that. But before we get to the study of the man himself, we're going to talk about his daughters, because they are the direct objects in the trickery that Jacob is about to experience.
Yes, Laban's daughters, Leah and Rachel. Yes, that. Yes.
Coming up right now, next on Character Study. If you enjoyed what you heard, please go to bible.fortt.com. That's bible.fortt.com, and join the email list to be the first to learn about our Bible plans on the YouVersion Bible app and other free resources. Character Study is a production of Fortt Media.